So we're here with Greg Besner, formerly of Restricted Stock Systems, a company that he founded and sold, and now the CFO of Second Market. We want to talk about entrepreneurship. What do you think are the defining qualities of an entrepreneur?
Well, it's funny, we'll be talking about that during our meeting tonight, but I think the qualities are very hard to define because I think everyone becomes obsessed with an idea for different reasons. For me, what's very exciting about entrepreneurship is building something from nothing. Taking an idea, which many people have many ideas, but actually building, finding the capital, people that believe in the idea, finding employees, people that will help build the company, and then finding clients that will actually license or buy your product. To me, there's nothing more thrilling. And then, of course, the byproduct of that is creating careers and helping to support families and build communities. It really all ties together. It's very exciting.
Do you remember the time when you decided you wanted to be in business for yourself?
I do.
When was that?
It's a funny question. No one's asked me that in an interview before, but I was riding my bicycle on the boardwalk in Atlantic City, where I grew up, and every weekend I'd be riding on the boardwalk with my father. I was probably about 9 years old, and I'd ride by a man. His name was Neil the Balloon King, and Neil would stand outside of the piers with a money belt and balloons, big beautiful balloons, and he would take out a wad of dollars and be giving people change. And every Sunday I'd ride by and I'd see Neil the Balloon King with all this money and his little business and these bright balloons. And I said, wow, someday I'm going to be like Neil the Balloon King. And I started selling potato chips and pretzels on the beach and carrying my own money belt, and that was really the beginning. That was my lemonade
At what age
lemonade
was that?
stand story. When I was 12, I started selling things on the beach, and so that was my little lemonade stand living by the beach. So anyway, that's my memory of wanting to be an entrepreneur.
That's great.
Yeah. I don't know where Neil is now.
Did you ever tell Neil that he was your inspiration?
No. Many years went by, and I realized that was the first inspiration.
Wow. Can you share an experience or two when you were up against something very difficult, a very problematic circumstance for your business, or even could have been an effect on you personally from running a business, and how you overcame some of those problems, or if you didn't, what you learned from the experience?
Wow, these are great questions, and we actually didn't even practice this. So when I started Restricted Stock Systems, we were funded in September of 2000. We had our first client a few months later, and we were scheduled to go live on September 14th, 2001. And of course, we were running low on money. We were about to deliver our first product. And of course, 3 days before September 14th was September 11th, 2011. Our servers were located at 7 World Trade Center and the Deutsche Bank building across the street. And it was hard. I recognized that the company may never survive that devastating day, but it was hard to, you said how something affected me personally. It was hard to be upset about a business failing when the world was so dark that day. So that was a really trying personally and professionally. But the skies cleared and New York rebuilt and my company survived and we flourished. So that was probably the most challenging single day in my entrepreneurial experience.
Did you think that meant the end of the company?
I thought we were probably 50-50.
And you were funded at this point?
We were funded, but we were a year into our financing. We probably had 6 months of additional capital, but this was our first client. This was, you build upon each brick, and that first brick felt pretty broken.
Sure.
So we survived, and fortunately we were very frugal and made sure we had enough capital to survive. We ended up delivering to that first client about 6 months later. And as I said, New York rebounded, and my little company did as well.
So without naming names, can you explain your worst hire?
I think the worst hire and the hardest, the most difficult hire are one and the same. And I think many entrepreneurs have the same challenge. As an entrepreneur, very often you are your best salesperson, and you have a small company and you're the only person selling. So hiring that first salesperson that will kind of take the baton is incredibly challenging. It took me 3 times to get that right. I don't know if it was me not handing the baton off well, or not having the right person to hand it to, or something in between, but it's very, very challenging.
So let's talk just a little bit briefly about, having gone through that 3 times, do you have any advice for people on, especially just sales in general, because it is so crucial to most startups, whatever their product or service that they're selling, techniques of hiring and maybe firing too along the way?
Well, if I would have gotten it right the first time, I think I'd be better suited to give advice on this topic. I think, like any hire, the person has to have the right skill set, and especially in sales where it's such a tacit skill. But I think culturally, if the person doesn't fit culturally, they're never going to fit into the role. And my mistake for the first 2 hires, neither of the 2 professionals fit in culturally. They both had the right background, but it's incredibly hard work and dedication. Start trying to sell a product that isn't quite done, or you don't have a track record yet, you don't have clients, you have limited resources to deliver. It's very, very challenging. So the person has to have the right skill set, they have to have the right motivation, and they have to fit in culturally. So, and every situation is different.
Sure.
Yeah. And once you do get that right, it's incredibly powerful.
So lastly, do you have any advice for, because so many startups fail, and I only talk about failure because I think there's so much wisdom in failure, that if you can learn from those experiences, then you can save yourself quite a bit of time and agony. Do you have any advice for people on ways to avoid certain pitfalls? And on the positive side, any advice in general for early stage entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs in general?
Well, I think about this a lot because there were so many times over the 7 years that I was growing my business until we sold it. There were so many inflection points where the business could have gone the wrong way, and fortunately we made some good decisions along the way to succeed. But a lot of it is luck. I mean, I hate to say that, the best laid plans quote, but it was there could have been many forks in the road that we took the wrong path and hit a brick wall. So I can't say that here's a formula and it will work. You just have to keep plugging along, and we got knocked down a lot, and you just have to get back up. We were, down to our last dollars for payroll a few times. We were down to delivering a product that wasn't quite right. We were, you win a client one week and you lose 2 clients the next week. So we've been there in my experience. So there's no winning formula, but the difference between succeeding and failing isn't a formula. It's, I guess, an obsession, which I'll talk about tonight, which just keeping at it, because there's no other way to succeed other than to keep steamrolling along. So I don't think I have a better answer than that. There's no.
And there was a happy ending, right?
Well, for my case, we were very fortunate. Our investors made money, our employees made money, and I made money. And again, I didn't do it for the money necessarily. But when you have investors and shareholders, you do have a responsibility. Their goal is to have a return on their investment. And we built a product. We had hundreds of clients. The product is still used today. So in all measurements, it was, and many of us ended up launching terrific careers, some entrepreneurial and some in more corporate roles. So yes, it was successful, I guess, by all measures.
Great. Well, thanks for sitting down with us.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.